Before modern convenience became the default, families cut costs and stayed independent with low-tech systems for water, food, fuel, storage, and household repair. We have ranked 25 of those old methods, from backyard livestock and smoke-cured meat to seed saving, foraging, and rainwater collection, by how much real independence each one still delivers today. Some are backed by federal agencies. Others sit in a legal gray area most people never think to question. By the time you get to number 1, you will see how all 25 connect into something far bigger than any single trick. Let's start with number 25 and what falls on your roof. Number 25 opens with a trick as old as the roof itself, the rain barrel. In Colorado, state law since 2016 lets homeowners collect up to 110 gallons of rainwater straight from their rooftops, no permit, no paperwork, just a barrel and a downspout. That's enough to water a small garden or keep fruit trees alive through a dry spell. The math is simple. 1 inch of rain on 1,000 square foot roof yields about 600 gallons. Even a quick shower can top off a barrel. The Colorado Division of Water Resources spells out these rules, making rainwater capture a legal, practical first step toward water independence. For families, it's a way to cut utility costs and turn every drop that falls into a household asset. No mystery, just common sense, backed by statute. Number 24. The household cistern marks a leap from simple rain barrels to serious multi-season water storage. Once a family moved beyond the 110-gallon rain barrel exemption, the cistern became a fixture, sometimes holding hundreds or even thousands of gallons beneath a backyard or side yard. But with that larger scale came a new layer of oversight. In San Francisco, any cistern over 55 gallons must be registered with the city, and design standards are enforced to protect water quality. Colorado's permitting rules echo this reality. Larger systems require Form GW S78, treating the cistern as a structure subject to inspection. These legal thresholds didn't emerge by accident. They reflect the point where household water independence meets public health and municipal water rights. For families, the cistern was a practical tool, one that demanded both careful planning and respect for evolving city codes. Number 23. Wooden gutters and clay jug downspouts formed the backbone of early American rainwater systems. Before PVC and seamless aluminum, families relied on milled pine or fir boards cut 5 or 6 inches wide and sloped a 1/4 inch every 10 feet to move water efficiently. Clay jug downspouts, fired in local kilns and joined with tar-based cement, carried runoff from the roof straight to barrels or cisterns. USDA farmstead plans from the 1930s prescribed quarterly cleaning with a gutter scraper and regular sealing of joints to prevent wood rot and leaks. Bracket spacing of every 2 feet kept gutters from sagging, while lime wash on clay jugs protected against freeze-thaw cracks. Archival photos show these systems as hands-on, maintainable, and entirely buildable with local materials. Without this simple hardware, water storage was impossible. The gutter and downspout were not just a relic, they were the first step in any closed-loop household water system. Number 22, the first flush diverter, stands as a simple but powerful upgrade to any rainwater system. When rain hits a roof, the first few gallons wash down weeks' worth of dust, pollen, bird droppings, and even traces of roofing chemicals. Grandparents knew to discard this initial runoff before letting water flow into storage barrels or cisterns, a practice now echoed in extension best practice sheets. The modern diverter is a pipe attachment that fills with the first 0.5 millimeters of rain, then seals off, sending cleaner water to storage. This device can cut bacteria and chemical loads dramatically, turning a basic rain barrel into a safer source for gardens or non-potable household use. It is a lesson in closed-loop thinking. Quality matters as much as quantity, and a few dollars in parts can prevent a barrel full of problems. Number 21. Laundry to landscape gray water systems open a new chapter in household water reuse, one that is both practical and legally accessible in California. The state's plumbing code specifically exempts washing machine-only gray water setups from permit requirements, provided the water goes straight to landscape irrigation and never touches the potable supply. This makes it the easiest entry point for anyone looking to reuse water at home. The system works by redirecting discharge from the laundry machine through a simple diverter valve and out to garden beds or fruit trees. Extension brochures caution against using bleach or boron-heavy detergents, since these can damage soil and plants. Instead, mild soaps and biodegradable products keep the cycle safe. For families, this trick means every load of laundry becomes a resource, not a waste stream, cutting water bills and building resilience, all within the letter of the law. Number 20 brings the bucket scale gray water reuse trick, a method so simple it needs no pipes, pumps, or permits. In Arizona, the Department of Environmental Quality sets a clear line. Up to 400 gallons of gray water per day can be reused for landscape irrigation, as long as it is kept on the property and away from edible crops. Grandparents practice this by collecting kitchen sink or bath water in buckets, then carrying it outside to water trees or shrubs. The state's 13 best management practices cover everything from steering clear of bleach-based soaps to keeping water off garden vegetables. This approach turns every rinse and wash into a resource, not a waste stream. No fancy plumbing required. While it is labor-intensive compared to engineered systems, the payoff is direct control over water use, immediate savings, and a hands-on lesson in closed-loop living. For many families, it is the first step toward a more resilient, self-reliant household. Number 19. Reed bed gray water treatment brings biology to the heart of household water reuse. A constructed wetland, often a shallow trench filled with gravel and planted with reeds, acts as a living filter for gray water from sinks, showers, and laundry. As water flows through the bed, solids settle, roots and microbes break down contaminants, and plants absorb nutrients, delivering a natural polishing step before the water returns to the landscape. This method scales up from buckets and pipes to a true system, reducing chemical use and closing the loop on water waste. Colorado's House Bill 24362 signals a policy shift, setting the stage for statewide acceptance of engineered wetlands as a default, not an exception. Design guidelines call for a settling basin, dense reed planting, and a winter bypass to prevent freezing. While more complex than basic gray water tricks, the payoff is a resilient, low-maintenance solution rooted in ecological engineering and now backed by legislative momentum. Number 18. The root cellar stands as the original cold storage solution. No electricity required. Grandparents built these below-ground rooms to keep crops like potatoes, carrots, and apples fresh through winter, using nothing but the earth's steady chill and careful humidity control. Extension bulletins still recommend the same targets, 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit and up to 95% relative humidity. That is the sweet spot for slowing spoilage and keeping skins pliable. Sand-packing carrots, separating apples to avoid ethylene cross-ripening, and stacking produce by moisture needs all were standard practice. Passive vents, vapor barriers, and egress openings made the cellar safe and effective. By matching storage to the biology of the crop, families could eat from their own harvest for 6 months or more, creating a true closed loop between garden and table. Number 17. The spring house and ice house stand as the cold storage backbone before electricity reached rural America. Each winter, neighbors gathered to cut thick blocks of ice from local ponds, hauling them to ice houses built with double walls and packed tight with sawdust. Properly insulated, these blocks could last well into summer, keeping milk, butter, and garden produce cool even as outside temperatures soared. Where a root cellar relied on Earth's steady chill, an ice house delivered true refrigeration, sometimes holding steady near freezing for months. Spring houses, built over running water, offered a constant 50 degrees Fahrenheit, perfect for cooling crocks of cream or storing perishables. Both systems demanded hard work and careful planning, but they gave families a way to stretch the harvest, preserve dairy, and manage food safety long before the first electric refrigerator arrived. These labor-intensive structures are a reminder that cold storage was once a community affair, engineered, maintained, and shared for survival. Number 16. Pressure canning stands as the non-negotiable safeguard for low-acid foods. The USDA Home Canning Guide sets the bar at 15 pounds per square inch, a threshold needed to destroy botulism spores in vegetables, meats, and soups, foods that a boiling water bath simply can't protect. Whether using a dial or a weighted gauge, accuracy is everything. Even a slight drop in pressure can mean unsafe jars. The rule doesn't end with sealing. Every jar must be reheated to a rolling boil before eating, a step grounded in federal food safety policy. While pressure canning demands more gear and vigilance than simpler methods, it remains the only process recognized by official guidance for certain foods. This is not a fringe trick. It is a core part of the closed-loop household system that kept families safe and self-reliant, and its standards are still echoed in USDA bulletins today. Number 15. Boiling water bath canning remains the simplest and most accessible entry point for turning summer's bounty into shelf-stable food. High-acid foods like jams, pickles, and tomatoes can be safely processed at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, needing only a deep pot, clean jars, and a rack to keep glass off the bottom. The USDA bulletin from 1921 pushed this method during the Victory Garden era, making it standard practice for millions of households. The science is clear. When the pH is below 4.6 and jars are filled with the right headspace, boiling water is enough to destroy spoilage organisms. This method requires less gear than pressure canning and remains a fixture in extension guides today, proving that preservation does not demand complexity, just careful technique and respect for the biology of the foods being stored. Number 14. Salt brine fermentation brings microbial preservation to the table. No heat, no electricity, just salt, water, and time. Grandparents packed cucumbers, cabbage, or green beans into crocks, covering them with a 2 to 5% salt brine and weighing them down so they stayed below the liquid to keep air out. This simple setup lets lactic acid bacteria thrive, lowering the pH and creating an environment where spoilage organisms cannot survive. The USDA still publishes safety notes on fermentation, stressing the importance of proper salt concentration and a tight anaerobic seal. Unlike canning, this method actually boosts vitamin content and preserves enzymes, turning garden surplus into tangy, shelf-stable food. For a household aiming to stretch the harvest without extra fuel, fermentation stands as a zero-energy complement to boiling water or pressure canning, one more link in the closed-loop food system. Number 13. Saving open-pollinated seeds stands as the quiet backbone of household food sovereignty. When grandparents set aside seed from their best tomatoes or beans, they were not just saving money, they were building a living library tailored to their soil, climate, and needs. Unlike F1 hybrids, which often failed to breed true and force growers to buy new seed every season. Open-pollinated varieties pass their traits reliably from one generation to the next. This practice, once promoted in USDA extension manuals and tested in National Agricultural Library seed labs, allowed families to adapt crops to local conditions and break dependence on commercial seed catalogs. Seed saving is more than a frugal habit. It is a strategy for resilience, letting households control their future harvests and preserve genetic diversity with every planting season. Number 12, seed cleaning, drying, and storage marks the technical finish line for any closed-loop garden. After saving open-pollinated seeds, grandparents relied on simple but precise steps to keep those seeds viable year after year. Winnowing separated chaff from kernels, and a final round of hand sorting removed damaged or off-type seeds. The goal was to reach a moisture content of 8 to 10%, dry enough to prevent mold, but not so dry as to damage the embryo. Seeds went into airtight jars with a desiccant, labeled by variety and harvest date, then stored in a cool, dark spot. Extension manuals from the 1920s and the 1930s set these targets, emphasizing that even a few degrees or a little extra humidity could cut germination rates in half. By closing the seed loop, families secured next season's harvest without a trip to the store, keeping the system resilient and self-sustaining. Number 11, feed sack fabric reuse. Transformed packaging into a household supply chain. During the 1930s, flour, sugar, and animal feed often arrived in printed cotton sacks, designed not just for transport, but for second lives as dresses, shirts, or kitchen towels. Manufacturers caught on to this closed-loop thinking. They printed floral or geometric patterns directly onto the fabric, and even included sewing instructions on the label. Smithsonian photographs from the era show children in feed sack dresses, a testament to families who saw no reason to throw away perfectly good material. Far from being a stopgap, this practice cut waste, stretched budgets, and turned every empty sack into a resource. It proves that real ingenuity meant seeing value in what others overlooked. The logic endures. Waste is just a resource waiting for its next use. Number 10. Repurposing jars, tins, and packaging was once the backbone of a household supply chain. An empty glass jar did not head for the trash. It became a storage vessel for screws, buttons, or the next batch of preserves. Tin lard buckets were cut and hammered into scoops, funnels, or even patch material for leaky roofs. USDA and National Agricultural Library photos from the 1920s and the 1930s show shelves lined with reused containers, each one labeled and pressed into service for a new task. Home economy manuals treated these materials as assets, not waste, emphasizing that every canning jar or coffee tin had an afterlife. This mindset turned packaging into permanent hardware, stretching budgets and closing the loop between what a family bought and what it could reuse. In a world before single-use plastics, nothing was truly disposable. Every container was one more tool in the household system. Number 9, darning and mending kept clothing in circulation long after store-bought replacements would have been needed. A worn sock heel or a split shirt seam was not a signal to throw something away. It was a chance to extend the garment's life with a needle and thread. Manuals from the early 20th century taught families to select strong, closely matched thread and to use a simple running stitch or a woven stitch to reinforce high-wear areas. Darning eggs and mushroom-shaped tools made it easier to shape repairs to fit heels and elbows. This skill was not just about thrift. It was a direct answer to clothing shortages, high costs, and the waste of discarding usable fabric. By mastering basic mending, households cut expenses, built self-reliance, and kept textiles out of the trash, a practice that still makes sense in any era of rising prices and fast fashion. Eighth place goes to the sewing infrastructure that scaled household resilience from the parlor to the city block. Domestic treadle machines, once a fixture in every home, became the backbone of the Works Progress Administration sewing workrooms during the Great Depression. At 475 10th Avenue in New York, Works Progress Administration records show thousands of garments, uniforms, bedding, and children's clothes produced each quarter, all on foot-powered machines that needed no electricity. These workrooms operated as community lifelines, training women in both repair and full garment construction while keeping families clothed through hardship. Maintenance logs detail how treadle machines were kept running with simple oil, new belts, and spare parts, making them nearly indestructible. This was more than patching socks. It was a civic scale system that turned fabric scraps into essentials, amplified household skills into citywide relief, and proved that repair and creation could be institutional, not just individual. Number 7. Sun-drying fruits, herbs, and vegetables turns a backyard or porch into a zero-energy preservation plant. Grandparents built simple racks from wood and screen, slicing produce thin to speed dehydration, and letting airflow do the work. The USDA drying bulletins set the safety bar. Under 15% moisture means mold and bacteria cannot take hold, and sun-dried apples or beans can last for months on a pantry shelf. No fuel, no jars, just the sun and careful monitoring. This method transforms a surplus harvest into a shelf-stable inventory, bridging the gap between fresh food and the next preservation step, protein drying and smoking. Drying isn't a shortcut. It is a mainstay for any household looking to stretch resources and keep control over what goes on the table. Number 6. The smokehouse stands as the classic answer to long-term protein storage when refrigeration was rare or unreliable. Cold smoking, described in wartime Federal Emergency Management Agency manuals and in manuals from the Defense Technical Information Center, uses wood smoke to surround meat with phenols and other compounds that slow bacterial growth and mold. This is not just about flavor. Phenolic compounds from hardwood smoke act as natural antimicrobials, creating an environment where spoilage organisms struggle to gain a foothold. The process can preserve hams, bacon, and fish for months, especially when paired with salting or brining. Today, permanent smokehouses face fire code restrictions and often require permits, but the chemistry remains the same. While modern food safety rules set limits, the principle of using smoke to extend protein shelf life is grounded in both biology and decades of official guidance. For households aiming to process their own meat, the smokehouse is a reminder that preservation is as much about controlling microbes as it is about tradition. Number 5. Safe foraging and legal boundaries draw a sharp line between resourcefulness and risk. Knowing which wild foods are edible takes more than a field guide. Extension offices publish detailed identification manuals, and some states maintain protected species lists that change from year to year. In Washington, anyone selling wild harvested mushrooms or berries at a farmer's market must hold a current food handler permit. That rule echoes the state's commitment to food safety, even for foraged goods. Straying outside these boundaries can bring fines or even criminal charges. Examples include picking in city parks, harvesting protected plants, or selling without a permit. Foraging, when done by the book, remains a legal and practical way to supplement the household food supply. The real trick is to blend local knowledge with current regulations. For families, it is a reminder that wild resource acquisition is a closed-loop system, only when safety and law walk hand in hand. Number 4 brings the wild harvest into the year-round pantry. Preserving foraged foods meant more than just enjoying berries in season. It was a system for turning the unpredictable abundance of the woods into reliable nutrition. Drying mushrooms down to 10% moisture, as recommended in USDA wild food bulletins, locks in shelf stability and flavor. To pickle ramps or wild onions, people use acid to make jams and relishes safe for long-term storage, with pH levels low enough to keep spoilage at bay. Smoking fish or wild game extends protein supplies without refrigeration. By combining these preservation methods, drying, pickling, and smoking, households could integrate wild foods into their core inventory, creating a closed loop between foraging and daily meals. This approach didn't just prevent waste, it gave families direct control over what they ate, linking the wild edge of the property to the kitchen shelf. Coming to the top 3, backyard chickens stand as the classic micro-livestock for the closed-loop household. A small flock, often just 3 or 4 hens, can turn kitchen scraps and garden weeds into a steady supply of eggs, occasional meat, and nutrient-rich manure for the compost pile. Most city ordinances now allow up to 4 hens per household, provided the coop sits at least 25 feet from neighboring homes and meets basic cleanliness rules. Extension guides lay out the system. Hens need shelter, daily access to fresh water, and a balanced diet, but they thrive on leftovers that would otherwise become waste. Unlike larger livestock, chickens fit into small yards and suburban lots, cycling nutrients and providing a tangible return on household inputs. The result is a resilient, high-yield system that still works, one that keeps the loop tight between food scraps, soil, and the breakfast table. In second place, backyard rabbits deliver a level of efficiency that is tough to match in household protein systems. Rabbits convert just 4 to 6 pounds of feed into a pound of meat, making them the most feed-efficient livestock commonly kept at home. Their quiet nature and compact size mean they can be raised discreetly, even in neighborhoods with strict homeowners association rules or limited outdoor space. Extension guides highlight their rapid reproduction. One breeding pair can yield dozens of offspring in a single year. Unlike larger animals, rabbits require little infrastructure, a shaded hutch, basic feed, and a steady water supply. Their manure, high in nitrogen and safe for direct use, closes the loop by feeding garden beds without composting first. For families aiming to produce protein, fur, and fertilizer in a tight, self-reliant system, rabbits remain a tactical choice, quiet, efficient, and still legal in many cities where other livestock is not. Closed-loop household systems treat water, food, fuel, and waste as parts of a single cycle. The FEMA Emergency Energy Technology Handbook from 1989 documents a wood gas generator, originally used during World War II, that turns scrap wood and garden waste into fuel for cooking or powering a generator. In daily life, kitchen scraps feed chickens, their manure enriches the garden, and the garden returns food to the table, keeping resources in motion and waste nearly invisible. Federal diagrams show rainwater, gray water, compost, and livestock all interlinked, forming a self-sustaining network. This approach was once standard, promoted by agencies like USDA and FEMA. The lesson is integration. Even one closed loop, composting, gray water reuse, or backyard livestock shifts control and builds resilience when supply chains break down. The real strength lies in how every part connects, creating a system that endures. That's the mindset ready to be revived. Across all 25 entries, one pattern stands out. Our grandparents built household systems, not one-off hacks. These methods endured because they solved real problems, cut waste, and gave families direct control, often with mainstream, not fringe support. Today, many of these practices remain legal, practical, and biologically sound. The real lesson? Resilience starts at home. Choose one system to reclaim this week and see what you can still do for yourself.